Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a wrap-up video. I'm going to be talking through and talking about all of the books that I read in the month of June and also the ones that I DNF'd in the month of June, because for the month of June I have 2 DNFs and we need to talk about it. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So for the month of June I read 5 books and DNF'd 2. So let's talk about the ones that I DNF'd first. So I started back in the middle of May. I started to read Sinner's Playground, which I found on Kindle Unlimited. I was super excited to read this because this book was written by Carolyn Peckham and Suzanne Valenti, who did the Zodiac Academy series, which I have restarted in July. So give you my thoughts on my reread of book 1 and hopefully book 2 in July. So go ahead and subscribe so you'll know when that video goes live. But I was excited because I saw Sinner's Playground on Kindle Unlimited and I thought this would be a really great book to read. This is I guess, dark romance kind of, or it's a mafia romance. I don't exactly know exactly what the trope is or the type of book it is. I when I first looked at it, I thought it was a dark romance. But it's a why choose, I think. It's between, I have my notes on my Kindle. It's between Fox, JJ, Chase, and Maverick, and the FMC is Rogue. This is a childhood friends to enemies to lovers, I guess. In the book, I DNF'd it, so I don't quite know what went on in the book. I DNF'd it around the 50% mark. This is a story about Rogue, who grew up in this town with this group of boys who are kind of underneath a big mafia portfolio or mafia family. They are the kids and friends of the kids of the mafia boss, and something happens and Rogue has to, she's forced out and basically abandoned. These boys were her life. They were her ride and die friends, and she had them forever. And then when she was 16 or 17, suddenly they kick her out and say, you have to leave, and they don't talk to her again. And then 10 years later, she leaves a very, very, very bad boyfriend who essentially tries to kill her and bury her alive. Didn't succeed. But she runs back to that town that she left with all of these mafia boys to try to get something. Her whole desire to go back to this town was one of the reasons why I DNF'd it, because I was so confused that through 50% of the book, the reason she went there was never discussed. She was just there. I still have no idea why she went to this town to be surrounded by the people who kicked her out, and she has really hard feelings about anyways. She does not like them. They are enemies, and she hates them. I still don't know why she went back to that town if she hated the people there. My thoughts. That's kind of the premise. That's all I really gathered of this book. It was basically just her getting to this town, them finding her. They apparently still really love her. She doesn't love them. But they're the mafia people now. They took over the mafia business. And they basically said, you are now theirs. She runs away. They catch her. They bring her back. She runs away. They catch her. They bring her back. And that was pretty much just the whole gist of the book, up to 52%. So the comments that I had was DNF at 72%. Nothing happened in 300 plus pages. I was at 52%. And this book was 300 pages already by itself. Halfway through. It was unnecessary. It was nothing happened in 300 plus pages except Rogue running from the boys, them catching her, locking her at the house, and then she runs away again. One thing of note is they are supposed to be this badass gang, but their safe house is ridiculously unprotected considering Rogue ran away multiple times. I thought it was hilarious that they were had all of these people stationed throughout the house and outside the house, inside the house. They were surrounded this house to protect the mafia people, the mafia guys. But yet Rogue, who is one little girl who's like in her mid to late 20s now, and she's able to like sneak out multiple times. Don't quite get it. I thought it was hilarious that this big badass gang had a girl that just could run away multiple times. And plus, they told the bodyguards to not let her leave, but yet she somehow snuck out. Like, they were on the look for her. They knew who she was. She still ran away. Don't understand it. But anyways, then it said, oh, plus Rogue supposedly went back to her hometown to find 4 keys the boys had, and I guess to get like the stash that these 4 like lockbox keys, I guess, held. But in 300 pages, she looked for the keys one time. And I couldn't force myself to try to figure out what was going on with it. And it was apparently a series. Like, this is book 1. I DNF'd it. So I started it, like I said, the middle of May. On my notes say that I started it on May 16th. And I finally gave up on June the 8th. So it was 24 days of me trying to get through 300 pages. And I still had no idea what was going on. And I just didn't care. So that was the first book that I attempted to finish in June. Actually in May. And I didn't even do that. So that was the first DNF of the month of June. I had one more DNF. And that was, I actually have the physical copy. That was The Children. This was my May or June. This was my June book of the month. This was, I don't know what genre this is, honestly. I think this was supposed to be a mystery thriller. I only got through like the first 4 chapters. I was on page 26 and I just had, this was a DNF for now. I do want to try to read this again. This is not a hard DNF. This is just, I was not in the mood for this at the time. So this is a story about a estranged adult children of a legendary author that was written into their dead mother's beloved fantasy series. And they must contend with the vine-like creep of legacy, memory, and magic. So this was, so far I was only following the daughter of the author. There is a son, and it's basically, the kids were thrust into the spotlight after the mother wrote them into this fantasy series. And apparently there's a lot of drama and stuff that they don't know about the family and the author, that these kids, like the stuff that they had to go through when they were kids. I didn't get into that. So I will be reading this again. I will be picking this up. This is probably going to be like a fall book. I just didn't feel like reading it. For some reason, this feels like a fall book. And so this was a soft DNF, but this will be this will be read at some point. So those are my 2 DNFs of June. Now let's go through the books that I did finish. So the first book that I did finish was The Score. This is book 3 of the Off-Campus series. So this is following Dean and Allie. This was the book that I was so excited to read because if you watched season 1 of Off Campus, there's a very large part of the story. Part of the series follows Garrett and Hannah, which is the couple that's in the deal. But then there's a very large emphasis of Allie and Dean in the first season of Off Campus, which is who the couples are in book 3. The Score. So I already saw them on screen in season 1, so I wanted to definitely get into their book. So I did read this and I gave this a 4.75. It was so good. I love Dean and Allie. I cannot wait for season 2 of Off Campus because I want to see what the story, like how the story progresses, because you saw a lot of this book in season 1. And so I do not know what the season 2 is going to follow, because you get a lot of the beginning of their relationship of this book in that first season. So I really, 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 really enjoyed The Score. I just loved everything about this. Dean and Allie were so good. I love to see their romance progress and see kind of how Dean was obsessed, like his obsession with Allie. I love to see how it progressed. I also love to see Allie realize that Dean is the person who she's not, Dean isn't what she expected. And I just love seeing them mesh together. Plus, I absolutely love this series because you get to see like all of the characters here. You get to see Tucker, you get to see Garrett, you get to see Logan, and you just get to see everybody in the stories. It was just so good. So I gave this a 4.75. I love it. The next book that I read was Starside by Alex Astor. I ended up giving this one a 4.5. This is book 1 of her new Starside series, but this was such a good little fantasy read. This followed Harlan and Eris. I think that's how you say her name. Every 50 years, is this competition, and people can go and try to fight other contestants. There could be up to, there are tons of different contestants. And basically the goal of this challenge is at the very end of it, if you make it to the finish line, the person can ask the gods for anything they wish. They can ask for magic, they can ask for anything to their heart's content, and the gods will grant it. And so Eris wants to go in this competition. She wants to get to the end, but she doesn't want to go to meet the gods and ask for something. She wants to go in this competition so she can get to the end and she can kill the gods. She is there for pure revenge. She is this young woman who is very people don't anticipate her to be very strong. She has difficulty wielding large swords. Everyone kind of doesn't anticipate her getting very far. Obviously, hint, she does. And then you have Harlan, who is another contestant, and he just hates her. Like, from the moment they catch eyes, he has this pure disdain for her. And it's just a enemies pure, like he hates her, and they end up having to team together. So you have like the whole enemies to lovers kind of relationship, and it was so good. The twist at the end was ridiculous. I cannot wait for the next one to come out. I think the next one comes out at the end of this year, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's pretty soon, thankfully, hopefully, crossing fingers that I have that statement correct, because I cannot wait to see what's gonna happen. It was insane. Some of my thoughts for this book, because I am horrendous with remembering what I thought about books, so I have to write it down in my Kindle, in my iPad. So some of my thoughts I have that I enjoyed this book, but it was definitely too long. This book was how many pages? Like 600 pages, I think, is what it was. No, I was wrong. It's 497 pages. And so I felt, some of the other comments I said was that I felt like the author had to fit as many situations in the book as possible, but didn't have any impact into the overall continuation of the plot. For instance, there were situations where they got put in a spot where the FMC can't swim, and then she gets where she has to swim. She has to figure something out. FMC is scared of the dark. So obviously there's dark issues, and then there's like, it was just like every single thing. Like, there was just so much thrown into the story that didn't really need to be there. Like, having the FMC not being able to swim, it did nothing to the end of the plot, like the continuation of the plot that was not needed. And so I felt like there were a lot of things in the book that probably could have been cut out or not had as much emphasis on, because it didn't actually impact the end of the book. So I just felt like it was very long. I like long books if it's warranted, but I just felt like there was just so much. It was like, just, because it's a challenge, so obviously they have different things that are going to happen, but it was like this and then this and then this. Like, it was literally back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and there was a lot of stuff that I didn't think needed to happen. So I thought that was a little bit too long, and it could have been cut down a little bit. But I did like how the ending happened. I did really enjoy what all went on and how it kind of left you wanting more. So did really enjoy that. So this was 4.5. Super excited to see what's going to happen in the next book. Just am hoping that the next book comes out very soon. The next book that I read was Direbound. This is book 1 of the Wolves of Ruins series. I ended up giving this one a 4.5. This is another one where it's a challenge. And in this one, you have Marin, who is the FMC. She lives in the outskirts of the palace in a very, very, very poor part of town. And she's kind of like a little teeny girl who is just badass. Like, she is a fighter, like an MMA, I guess, kind of style fighter. And the way that she's able to get money and support her mom and her sister, her younger sister, is through these fights. And so that's Marin, and then you have Stark, and then you also have Lee. Those are the 2 MMCs that you see primarily in the story. But the story premise goes, Marin is kind of trying just to survive in her town, and somehow, or for some reason, you have these vampires who are on, like, further away from the palace. They are coming in randomly and sneaking into homes and stealing these young kids, and you never get to see the kids again. Sadly, that happens one night to Marin's little sister. And so what she's decided is she is going to try to find her sister. No one has ever found these kids before, but she is bound and determined to find her sister. And the way that she decides to do that is she is going to volunteer in, like, the king's army, because she wants to go to the front lines to fight, because the king's army is at war with the vampires. So she wants to join the king's army so she can get deployed to the front line. So hopefully she'll be able to find where the vampires are taking these kids so she can get her sister back. But lo and behold, the class that is going to the next up to try to join the king's army is the time where the contestants are able to see if they bond with any, like, dire wolves. And she is not expecting that. If you bond with a dire wolf, you don't really go to the front line. You have other missions. So she does not want to bond. She goes into this competition, and in her mind, every time when she gets to the part where she has these wolves, she's thinking, don't bond with me, don't bond with me, I don't want to be here, don't bond with me, don't bond with me. So hopefully they will see her hesitancy, because the people who don't bond with the dire wolves, they go to the front they go to the front line. So guess what happens? She gets bonded even though she doesn't want to. You have Marin, who is now in the king's army, bonded to a dire wolf who does not talk to her, and she has to get through this competition and be able to get into the king's army, because once you're bonded with a dire wolf, there is no getting out of it, or it is a lifelong commitment. If you try to leave your dire wolf, you will die. Once you are bonded, that is it. It is for life. So plans have changed. So now she's trying to survive being bonded with a dire wolf and getting through, like, basic training essentially for the king's army as part of the dire wolf squadron per se. Really did enjoy this. This also had a twist, was not expecting it, and it was really good. I did enjoy it. It was a good time. I do have book 2 already. I was planning on reading that maybe in July. If not, it will be read very soon. But I do really enjoy this book. Cannot wait to see what happens in book 2. Let me check and see if I had any other notes. So yeah. So there were things that got exposed that didn't see coming. So I had a statement for that. One of the notes that I had on this book is that Lee, who is her boyfriend, back in, like, her old neighborhood, and he called her kitten. It bugged me. I don't know what it is. It was very, like, to me, it was very condescending, because she is a badass girl. Like, she is a awesome fighter, and she's super powerful. She's super smart and fast, and, like, she is not a kitten. And I hated it. I hated that he called her kitten. It was so, like, condescending sort of, but in a sweet way, and I just didn't like it. So I could not stand how he called her kitten, because she was not a cute little kitten that was just like sitting on the side wanting to be cuddled. That was not Marin, and it bugged me. I can't really say any of these other, I can't say any of my notes because it was pertaining to what was going on. So it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. So if you have not read Diarybound, definitely pick it up. It was a really enjoyable read. I gave it a 4.5, and I can't wait to see what Furybound is going to be like and how the story is going to progress, because things got interesting at the end of that book. The next book I read, I was so excited to read. I've been wanting to read this book since it came out, but I've honestly been a little scared to read because, again, it's part of a series. It's book 1, and I think the second book doesn't come out until 2027. The first book, Daggermouth, is going to be re-released because I think it got traditionally published. So I have already pre-ordered, I believe, the actual published version of this book. But I think the second book doesn't come out until like early 2027. And I was very hesitant to pick up something that I know is not going to be published, like the second book's not going to be published for several months. But I just kept eyeballing this, and I decided I needed to read it. So I did. So I ended up picking up Daggermouth, and I gave this 5 stars. So this was my, I think, second 5-star of 2026. Surprisingly, I have been very sparse and hesitant to give 5 stars, but this one was so good. This is a dystopian romance, and normally I don't really care for dystopian very much. It's not like a typical genre that I gravitate toward. So unsure how I was going to like this. But this follows Shadra, I think is how you say her name, and Grayson. This also, I just got this on Audible, and it just got published, I think, or released. The Audible version just got released, I think, in the end of June, I think. But I'm so excited because I believe Teddy Hamilton is the MMC. I can't wait. Hold on, let me find out really quick. Yes, Teddy Hamilton is the MMC, and Angel Peen is the FMC. It's a duet narration as well. I have it on Audible. I'm probably going to end up listening to it again because I have to see how the audiobook is done, but I'm going to listen to the audiobook when I got the updated book, because when it gets traditionally published, I'm afraid something's going to change. So I want to follow along in the traditionally published version and not the indie version. So I will be listening to it very soon because I cannot wait to see how the narrators do in this book. But regardless, so this follows Shadra and Grayson. I also have on here, it follows Callum, Jameson, and Lyra. Those are kind of like the main sub characters in here. This is a fantasy dystopian, like I said. Let me go to my thoughts. So I put down on my thoughts that this one kept me on my toes. It felt like everything was unraveling slowly, and then the ending was like a bomb that went off. Cannot wait until the next book, and really look forward to seeing more of the romance between Shayra and Grayson. So in this book, Shayra is a assassin, and I don't think this one has this version doesn't have the map. I think the new version will have the map of like the world, or the town I should say, but basically it's got rings. It reminds me a lot of Hunger Games because of the way it has the different rings on the town. So you have on the very innermost part is like the king, like the palace, and then you have the outer rings, and they're each called different names, and I don't remember exactly what the names were. But Shadra is coming from the very, very, very farthest ring. She is an assassin for this gang. It's a very, very, very powerful gang, and she gets an assignment to kill the king's son, Grayson. And the king's son is also the like Punisher. What is his like title? He's basically the one who, for the king, assassinates and like punishes the prisoners that gets caught. So he has killed a lot of Shaedra's friends and family and people from her like ring, because they have either broken the laws, which are ridiculous. Some of the laws are ridiculous, or just done whatever the king has determined that's bad and punishable by death. Grayson is the one that executes those people. So Shaedra gets an assignment to kill Grayson, and she attempts to, but before everything is said and done, she is captured. And the king has, instead of killing her, has decided to make an example of her and basically says that she, Shaedra, who is an assassin mercenary from the Outer Rings, who is looked very down on, she has to marry Grayson as a show that even the wildest or the most bad people can be converted to the ways of the king. So they have like a forced relationship, forced marriage per se, that the king says, if you do this, if you don't do this, we will kill you and all of your family, for her and also for Grayson. If the king has basically said that if Grayson does not marry Shaedra, he will kill his daughter, who Grayson loves. Like, that's his sister. That's how evil this king is. So they're forced to get into this relationship for show and get married. So there's a lot of forced proximity, a lot of tension, a lot of anger, and it was just so good. The amount of things that were like unveiled that you're just like, oh, okay, and then you see later how they connect was crazy. I loved it. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to read this again, because I feel like if I read this again, some of those things that I didn't catch the first go round, I'm going to catch the second time, because now I know how the book is going to wrap up. I feel like there's more stuff that I just missed because I didn't think anything of it, but it actually did play in. The way all of the dots got connected was so great, and I so enjoyed it. So this was my second 5-star of 2026, and I'm definitely gonna be doing a reread and an audio listen very soon. And then the last book that I read in July, this was a book that I got out of the library, so I do not have it anymore, but I read My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. I gave this 4 stars. I think this is either the second or the third Alice Feeney book that I have read, and they've all been good. This followed a handful of characters. So you have Eden and Birdie, Harrison, Carter, and that's it. So you have those 4 characters. The story is following, for the most part, Eden and Birdie's perspective. So something happened at the very beginning of the book. You have Eden, who leaves her house early in the morning to go on a run. And when she goes on her run, she leaves her car keys, she leaves her phone. Like, she just, she leaves everything at home and she just goes on a morning run. And she's in this really teeny tiny small town where everybody kind of knows everybody, but she is new to the area and they just moved in recently. So she goes for a run in this little small town, and when she comes back home, for some reason, the door's locked. And so she can't, because she has no keys, she doesn't know what's happening. So she goes and knocks on the door, and this strange woman opens the door, and she's confused. Like, Eden's confused, and the woman who opens the door is confused. And she's like, Eden's like, who are you? This is my home. Why are you here? What is going on? And the woman who opens the door is like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is my home. I live here. This is my house. And then all of a sudden, Eden's husband shows up on the other side of the door with this strange woman, is confused. Like, who are you? What are you doing here? This is my wife. You're not my wife. And like, the whole thing is confusing. Eden doesn't understand what's happening. They basically end up, the husband calls the cops because she won't leave, because Eden is like, no, this is my house. What is happening? And that kind of sets up Eden just being so confused what's happening. And then you get Birdie, another person's perspective. Birdie has just found out that she has some horrible health news and decides she's going to go back to the town that she had a connection to when she was younger. She's going to go back there. Lo and behold, is the same town that Eden, the whole thing with Eden's going on. So then Birdie comes back to the town, and then it ends up being that Birdie is a detective. And the first day back, she comes to an assignment where Eden has disappeared. No one knows where Eden's at. So Birdie's on the case to find Eden. And that's kind of the gist of it. I can't really say a whole lot because there's a lot more stuff that goes on in the story. But the ending, let me see what my notes say. So I have a lot of notes. I have I have bullets and sub-bullets on my notes. So my synopsis on here says, I was confused through about 60%, and then I accurately guessed part of the ending, but not all of it. There were a couple of things left unclear, but overall a decent thriller. Didn't hate it and didn't predict the ending as soon as I started reading it, which is a good sign. So a lot of times, if you have a book that is a thriller and you start reading it and you immediately know how it's going to end, that's definitely not the way this book was. I didn't have any idea what was actually going to happen at the end of this book. And so it was an enjoyable book. I didn't understand what was happening through about 60% of it, which I feel like is a good thriller in my perspective. So that was a 4-star thriller, my second or third Alice Feeney, and it was a good read. So that was all of the books that I either read or DNF'd in the month of June. Overall, it was a really good reading month. I did not read as many books as I hoped to read. I wanted to get to a lot more books, but over the last few months, I have really had a struggle trying to dedicate time and want to read. There's been a lot of times I've had time to read. I've just not had the desire to read. So I'm in that weird funk. I think I'm back in a book slump, sort of, but not full-blown book slump. I think I'm right there on the verge of being in a book slump, but I haven't gone full-blown book slump yet. So hopefully book slump is not going to rear its ugly face again like it did a few months ago, but I'm still making progress through some of my physical TBR, which is a good sign. But all that to say, that is everything that I read or DNF'd in the month of June. I have been talking for 44 minutes on 5 books. That's ridiculous, but whatever. Actually 7 books considering my DNFs, but 45 minutes for 7 books is pretty excessive, but hey, what can you do? I have a lot to say sometimes when it comes to books. So with that, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not already, and let me know down below with the 2 DNFs that I had, Sinner's Playground and The Children. Have you read them? And if so, should I read them immediately? I don't think I'm going to, but let me know if I am mistaken in either one of those books, because if they are worth it, then I'll pick them up sooner, but I'll wait for you to tell me. So that's going to be it. Thank you so much, and I will see everybody in my next video. Bye!